Right, well, welcome everyone. If you are here for a webinar about finishing Q1 with strong sales, you're in the right place. My name is Jenna Ochoa. I am the Director of Tech Partnerships here at Justuno. I've been at the company for about 4 years now, and I am super excited about today's group. We have 3 brand new partners who have never presented to Justuno audience before. So I'm very excited. Those would be Clearbanc, Daasity, and Enquire Labs. And then we have 2 of our top existing partners, which would be Omnisend and Tinuiti. So super excited for you to meet them. Before we meet everybody, I would love if people who are already in the room, if you would drop in where you are joining us from today. Super interested to see. I am joining from Amarillo, Texas. So I know if there are any Texas folks joining us, thank you, and I hope you're not using your cellular data for this. Hopefully you have power and Wi-Fi. Cool, we have a fellow Canadian, Margot. New York City, Toronto, Canada, some more Canada in the house. San Diego, very cool. Oh, somebody's joining from San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. I have actually been there, it's beautiful. Miami, Ellen in Denver. Welcome everybody, cool. Looks like we have a very good spread. Melbourne, Australia. Very cool. Well, thank you. Keep typing in so we can see where everybody is at. Thank you for sharing. And let's go ahead and meet our panelists. So if you guys can just introduce yourself, tell me who you are, where you are joining us from today, and what you do about at your company, and a little bit about your company. So Margot, if it's okay, can we kick it off with Clearbanc?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm Margot Patterson. I lead our technology partnerships at Clearbanc. For those who don't know, Clearbanc we provide growth capital for online businesses, particularly e-commerce businesses. For us, we saw sort of a need in the market. A lot of our founders, they went through their own rounds of fundraising for their businesses at the time, and really saw a need for an option that wasn't venture capital, it wasn't traditional debt or a loan. And so Clearbanc basically provides growth capital. We only look at companies' data. So we don't look at school you went to, where you're from. And from that, we basically just look at your online revenue for the last 6 months. So we fund companies as low as doing 10K of online sales a month, and to larger brands. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about Clearbanc. So excited to talk a little bit more about some of our data tools, our capital product, and a little bit about how our customers are kind of finishing off the quarter strong.
Thank you, Margot. Sorry, I'm messing with my Zoom controls. They're going between desktops, so I apologize about that. Dan, let's have you go next. I heard, did people call you Daasity Dan, or did I just make that up?
That is true. They do call me Daasity Dan. So nice to meet everybody and glad to be here. I'm calling in from San Diego, but I'll give a shout out to all those Canadians online. So I grew up in Toronto. So we are a data analytics platform working with a lot of the brands that we've got here in terms of helping people get all the different data from all their different data sources, your Shopify, your marketing platforms, your fulfillment platforms, your email, SMS platforms, and putting it into one central location to help you really run your business and analyze all of your metrics and make better decisions.
Thank you, Dan. We also have Jeremy joining from your team as a chat panelist. So you'll see Jeremy on mute, but he might pop in the chat and help answer some questions. All right, Matt, you are next up.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenna, for having me. I'm Matt Barr. I'm the founder and CEO of Enquire Labs. We are a post-purchase survey solution for Shopify merchants. We help merchants solve everything from attribution, personalization, conversion rate optimization with post-purchase surveys. We work with a little over 1,000 brands, and right now we're serving about 100,000 surveys a day. So yeah, that's us.
Thanks, Matt. I'm super excited to learn more about your tool today. Next up, we have Gabe, who is from Omnisend.
Success here at Omnisend, calling in from Charleston, South Carolina. And Omnisend is a marketing automation platform that allows you to send email, SMS, and web push notifications and integrate directly with e-commerce platforms like Shopify, Shopify Plus, and BigCommerce. Excited to be here today.
Cool, thanks, Gabe. I actually got a quick demo of your product yesterday and was super excited to see your language support. I know this might be a dumb detail, but if any international people on the webinar today are looking for a good solution, might want to check out a demo. And then last but not least, we have Josh Briscoe from Tinuiti, one of our longtime partners. So Josh, can you tell us where you're joining from and a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Coming to you guys live from San Diego, California. I am the VP of Growth Media here, and Tinuiti is the largest independently held performance agency across the triopoly of Google, Facebook, and Amazon. And basically, if it's media buying, if it's performance digital, we're doing it.
Awesome. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. I think we can get into the content pretty quickly. I wanted to go over a couple of logistical things. So first, just a reminder, this will be recorded. So if you have to hop early, go for it. If your power goes out, if you're in Texas, we'll send you the recording. I'll shoot it out tomorrow. Secondly, we will be saving time, hopefully, for Q&A at the end. It depends if we have enough time. But our chat is open. There's a Q&A feature. So at any time during the presentation, if you have a question, just shoot it in either of those places. I might choose to interrupt the panel and ask them if it's relevant. If not, I will keep a note of the questions and we can tackle those toward the end. So I think that's it. Yeah, let's get into the content. I'm going to stop with this screen share. And we will just have the panelists. Great. So we have a couple, actually we have 3 themes we're going to tackle. And the first one that we want to start with is, it's actually a question. It says, what has Q1 in e-commerce looked like in the past and how does it compare to this current year? So Josh, you guys at Tinuiti are our longest standing agency partner. I feel super confident that across all of your merchants that you service right now, that you probably have the best insight to kick us off with. So I'll kick that question to you.
Sure thing. In past years, Q1 has really been oriented around a few key verticals, primarily. It's going to be health and personal care, so the new year, new you kinds of brands, and then winter gear and winter sports types of brands. And obviously, those years, or this year, those brands and those verticals are continuing to do exceptionally well. But what's been really interesting is we've seen, you know, due to COVID, obviously, we've seen a huge lift across all e-com verticals, or I should say most e-com verticals, and we've seen that continue into Q1 here of this year. And so a lot of these verticals and retailers that, and traditionally this has been more of like a reset and kind of recalibrate quarter for them, are actually still kind of full speed ahead and still seeing really, really awesome performance. So that's been a huge shift for us this year. And as we're getting into March now, which is when it seems like most of the lockdowns and really more strict precautions went into place last year, it'll be really interesting to see how, you know, March and beyond starts to comp against 2020, because to this point, we're still kind of in that net new rolling 12-month period of COVID performance.
Dan, what have you guys seen at Daasity from like the data perspective? Are you seeing the same things as Josh just mentioned?
Yeah. So I think what Josh said, I definitely echo that. I think in terms of the shift in because of COVID, as you're starting to get into this period of when lockdown and when things started to change. So, and you're starting to see that already, you know, Walmart publishing earnings, I think it was this morning or something they missed, and they're saying it's going to be a challenge in terms of going forward, these comps year over year, because you went from a period of, you know, some higher CPMs in terms of marketing, right? Getting your Facebook, your acquisition costs were a little bit higher. And then suddenly everybody went into this world of, we don't know what's going on, and they plummeted. And now you're going to do these comps around, they're not doing as well. So the challenge is going to be actually more around forecasting and planning. That's where the challenge is going to be, and where I think companies, what they're going to need to do is, you're going to want to do a little bit of comp to 2020, but you're also going to need to sort of comp back to 2019, because the next 2 to 3 months are going to be this really flux period of, it's not really going to look like 2020. It's going to look more like 2019 did, but with the reality of sort of say Q3, Q4 of 2020, where we've made this giant shift. And so you're going to have to be really thoughtful around things around how are you attacking, what are your right CPOs to bid for in marketing, what's the right inventory levels to have. So I think more effort's going to have to be placed there for merchants to really think about how do they set their goals and make sure that they monitor their business.
Yeah, this iOS 14 update, I think this is going to be a theme throughout our conversation here, but Matt, you also had some comments about how the pressure is kind of mounting for brands. What have you guys seen over at Enquire Labs?
Yeah, that's definitely the biggest topic over here. So the majority of our customers are using us to power attribution surveys. And an attribution survey is simply just a how did you hear about a survey that's served to a customer post-purchase. And we're seeing more and more of our customers take our data and start to just build more comprehensive models that involve their Facebook spend and other spend, just to see and track all of the different changes that they're seeing, to see if they can really capture that halo effect. So that's definitely a really just important trend, and it's not going away. It looks like, at least for this year and next, until kind of these conversion APIs get a bit stronger. So that's definitely the first topic. And then the second topic, if you asked me a year ago, so we have obviously a whole trough of data around where people are coming from. And Facebook and Instagram last year in Q1, just they owned it. It was, honestly, looking at it was a little scary in the sense of, wow, Facebook and Instagram are this responsible for all of these sales. And we're seeing that come down a lot. And some of it's definitely going to TikTok, which isn't a surprise. That's up 6x year over year on a per merchant basis if we were to normalize it. So I think that there's a couple things happening, but as these brands scale, I'd say one thing, scaling maybe on Facebook and Instagram might be getting a little bit more difficult from an attribution and tracking perspective, but these media mixes might be getting a little bit healthier. So there might be not as much kind of high slope growth in a sense, but there might be more healthy mixes of where people are allocating their capital. So that's pretty much what we're seeing.
Matt, you mentioned TikTok. Josh, I know that at least probably the last time that you and I spoke, Tinuiti was probably pretty new in getting into TikTok. Have you guys delved further into that channel? Are you seeing what Matt is also seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, to his point, a year ago, TikTok, from a performance marketing perspective, really wasn't on many people's radars at all. Maybe just some high-level branding types of things, but not only has the pandemic driven more people to that platform, TikTok itself has improved their direct response ad units, and so we're definitely leaned in here, and it's a much more it's part of almost every media mix now, especially with people that are trying to go mid upper funnel. So yeah.
To me, that's crazy. I still don't have the app. We were just chatting before about Clubhouse, and Gabe's like, no, I don't have time. I have kids. So I'm holding off on TikTok for now.
Same here.
Dan, you mentioned forecasting and inventory. Margot, this is something that I didn't know about Clearbanc that you mentioned to me when we first kind of had our introductory call to each other. Can you speak a little bit to Dan's point about how inventory is becoming more or forecasting inventory will be much more important this year, and how Clearbanc helps merchants kind of think about that?
Yeah, that was the perfect segue. And so, for us, we were always, customers are always using our capital, since the beginning to fund and finance our inventory purchases. We came out and launched a more specific dedicated inventory capital product last year. And so how it basically works is we just charge a flat 6% fee on the capital, and how we get paid back is we take a percentage of the e-commerce merchants' sales every day. And so the beauty of that is, it was interesting enough when COVID hit, because we are not a program where you have to pay fixed payments every month, we just take a percentage on sales. If you're having a great month, we're going to take a little bit more that month. If you're having kind of a less than great month, then we're going to take a little bit less that month. And so it's a really flexible payback period from that perspective. And so, just kind of reflecting on our January this year, we had one of our best Januaries ever, which we're kind of delighted by, obviously. But a lot of people were coming to take advantage of the inventory product. In addition, last year we built kind of a benchmark and insights tool that basically shows our founders, how some of their marketing and sales metrics compare to others in their vertical. And so a lot of people were seeing there's a high engagement with that tool because they're specifically looking at it from getting a sense of, okay, from the last 12 months, from the last 6 months, how have my sales fluctuated? And so they're using that to sort of figure out, okay, I mean, forecasting inventory is probably one of the hardest things an e-commerce brand has to do. And I don't know, I feel like there's no secret sauce, but the more data obviously you have access to, the easier it gets. And so people are kind of leveraging some of our tools to basically figure out, okay, what is kind of the demand or forecast I should be thinking about when it comes to my inventory buying cycles. And, with our financing product, it makes it a lot easier because one of the things a lot of small brands don't have the luxury of doing is buying inventory in bulk, and as a result of taking advantage of those bulk discounts. And so when you have the cash flow essentially to finance that, you are able to take advantage of those savings. So that's something that we've been hearing from customers, particularly in the last month compared to January 2020.
Thank you, Margot. I want to ask the audience if they can just respond in the chat if they are doing any type of inventory forecasting. And Jeremy, you gave me a great poll. I'm going to launch that here in a little bit. I think we'll be talking more about forecasting later on. So if you're open to sharing, go for it. Yeah, so Josh, I think it was you that mentioned at the top of this topic that usually brands are taking this time to kind of, relax, kind of plan out the rest of the year. And Gabe, I think you wanted to kind of chime in here about how brands can actually do that, even though right now it might be pretty busy for them, but maybe this is a good opportunity for them to just kind of take a breath.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, when we compare it to years past, like usually January is kind of like the dust is settling after the storm in Q1, after Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all those holidays. And this year, it seems almost like you've got to keep the pedal on the metal or you're going to fall behind. I think we saw the same thing at the beginning of COVID quarantine. You had brands that took a little bit more sensitive approach to it and kind of backed off some of their marketing. And then you had the brands that just went business as usual and they kind of rolled through it and they saw the success. You look at you go back to brands like Tom's, which is more social conscious. And you look at when COVID first started, they did not miss a beat. They didn't stop and say, hey, we should be extra sensitive to this. They literally were like, here's our new spring releases. And it was kind of just life as usual. And so they kind of kept rolling with it. And I think that's what we need to keep seeing in 2021. So in years past, this was definitely an opportunity to take a breath. And I think it's important to find that time to kind of reset. So things that I've been working a lot with our merchants from an email perspective or SMS perspective is just taking the seat of your consumer or getting a close friend and say, hey, will you go shop our site? There was a lot of extra revenue. So people were investing in all different types of acquisition technologies, driving that traffic from social and getting them on the email list. And now you kind of take a step back and you go to your website and you get the chat bot, the push notification, the pop-up, if you're doing SMS, you might get the SMS pop-up, you get the exit, and there's all this noise because you've been doing all of this testing. And now it's time to take a step back and say, okay, what's actually been effective, what's actually working, what are our consumers actually responding to, and kind of taking a set to reset all of those things. And also make sure that your branding is matching what your brand voice as you go forward in 2021. It was funny enough, I was talking to a customer earlier today, and we were talking about A/B testing send time optimization and when should they send their messages. And I was like, and they're a daily sender. And I said, this is a really challenging topic, especially for a daily sender. They kind of tend towards an older demographic anyway. And people really just want to be told what to do and they don't like change. We've already had enough change. And so and they were like, you know what, you're absolutely right. We've done a little testing here or there and we've got loyalists that are emailing us going, it's 9:30. I normally get my email at 8:30. Why haven't you sent it to me yet? And so they have to be very particular about it. So, all of that to say is keep it simple. Make sure you have a clear call to action. When you're sending emails, it should be super clear what you want that person to do and what you want that buyer to do, especially if you're in e-commerce, right? The goal is to sell, right? Opens, clicks, that's important. You got to make sure you're getting into the inbox and having that engagement. but ultimately it's about driving revenue. And so getting people to click on those clear call to actions. The other piece of it, and I'd be very curious to see what kind of
I lost Gabe.
Oh, did you lose me? Am I back now?
Yeah, the last 3 seconds.
Okay, good. All right, no worries. Good, clear. So clear call to action, make the button big, tell people exactly what they need to do, buy now, shop now, learn more. And then I would say the other piece of that is last year at this time frame is when the report came out that 63% of product searches were starting on Amazon. And I think everyone kind of relied on Amazon. It was the easy way to go. It was the reliable kind of COVID, like get your goods that you needed. They had toilet paper, they had paper towels. Now, as we've kind of progressed and people have more time, my wife has decided to get really more green and try to like go more directly to the brands. So, you know, we've gone to bottleless shampoo and conditioner, and she's buying direct from the brand. We're going like bottleless laundry detergent, and she's going direct to the brand. So she's kind of, I mean, we still order stuff off of Amazon. We have kids, we've got dogs, we need stuff easily. But now that she still has time to research and kind of dig into it, she's avoiding Amazon first, seeing if she can find something else direct. And then if all else fails, then she goes back to Amazon. So it's a great opportunity for those direct to consumer brands to really seize the opportunity to make that relationship special with their consumers.
Thanks, Gabe. You got some feedback here in the chat. I believe
Sure.
it's a great point, Gabe. And then we have a question here from Mickey. So anybody can feel free to take this. Maybe we can have a couple of people take it. But she says, curious what the, she or he, I'm not sure, curious what the best frequency is currently for asking for the sale as a CTA. As in, people used to say two jabs, one hook. Maybe that's a Gary Vee reference. 2 value prop / info emails, 1 ask for the sale. Is this outdated?
I mean, I tell people all the time, like, you can serve as much content as you possibly can that people will consume. So I always tell people, like, start simple. Like, we always kind of recommend a 4-week campaign cycle, where it's like first week is new releases, second week is more content heavy, third week is maybe your big promotion, and then 4th week is the products you have a high inventory of, and you just label them as your best sellers to clear that inventory, right? Because that's what marketing is about, is you get people to believe what you want them to believe. So in terms of that, like, if you have a sale, promote the sale. If you have a new release, promote the new release. You know, people are clicking and shopping on emails because they want to buy. I think we saw the same thing with the advent of the promotion tab in Gmail. People now go to that promotions tab in the mood to shop, and we haven't seen any drops in opens or clicks or conversions like ever since Gmail introduced that. And if anything, we saw a little bit of a rise because now people shop with intent rather than just trying to clear the noise.
Thanks, Gabe. Mickey, let us know if that answered your question. All right, I want to switch gears a little bit. We have been talking about past year, what it looks like for this year. Moving forward to chatting a little bit more about forecasting, I want to launch a poll here. And you guys can respond, just take some time. But Daasity Dan, I think I'd like you to kick off this section. Can you talk to us about effective strategies you've seen merchants use to squeeze more sales out before the end of Q1? So basically, what are people doing right now that's effective before the next quarter?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and I'll give a couple of different sort of ideas out there. I think one of the key things is you just acquired a whole bunch of new customers, and so how do you kind of continue to engage with them? And so for me, there's a couple there's sort of 3 sort of strategies that are really important. One is, this is a good time to, it's in Q1, to start thinking about, as Gabe said, launching new product, right? So that makes it really interesting. So how do you do something that is bringing you into that is in the new year, in the new quarter, that gets consumers kind of excited? So, you know, very traditional in retail, you have seasons. Not every brand is like that. But how do you do something that is, even you taking a product that you currently have and sort of sprucing it up a little bit, or sort of marketing it a little bit different to kind of change that perspective? The second thing is really you want to do a lot around customer segmentation. So you have high value customers, so people that have shopped, that have bought multiple times coming out of holiday, and then you have people that you got for the first time. And you have two different strategies. For the people that have purchased multiple times, you want to keep them. And one of the things that I love is, how do you think about doing something that is not a discount? So is it a gift with purchase? Maybe it's an exclusive. You take your best customers, and if you have this new product, can you actually put them in your Shopify? Maybe if you're using Shopify, right? Create a customer list, give them a landing page. It's only for them, where only they can buy that product a week before everybody else. Super cool. So you got to sort of think outside of the box in terms of making people feel special, and using that to drive sort of that loyalty. And then on the second piece is, these new customers that you've just acquired, now you want to kind of maintain that. You want to maintain sort of their interest. So it's both about getting them to engage to make that second purchase. And that maybe you want to go with that discount or something buy now strategy, but also get them to understand and why you want to connect with that brand, going back to sort of the content that Gabe mentioned.
Yeah, we get that question a lot here at Justuno is, if you don't want to run a discount, what can you do? But you hit on some really great concepts there, Dan. Margot, I'd be curious, I think here you were wanting to speak a little bit about acquisition marketing. So, we've heard here, and we've been hearing so much lately about the dependency on Facebook and channels like this. What advice can you give for brands here at the end of this quarter and looking, I think, Matt, you termed it as more like developing healthier channels. What advice do you guys have over at Clearbanc?
Yeah, for sure. And again, sort of a good segue from Dan's point. So typically, we work with a lot of smaller merchants. In the past, they've used our capital solely for Facebook and Google ads, which is great. But the trend that we're seeing now is they're really starting to diversify their marketing strategy. So we actually have a partner recommendation tool where we provide recommended partners based on their sales and marketing metrics. That's kind of a practice that goes through our account management team. And so we've actually been connecting and got a lot of interest from customers around introducing them to customer service tools. So Gorgeous is a great one that we've had a ton of customers sign up with. And particularly, I think there's this whole conversational commerce theme is really interesting, particularly as, last holiday season, there were so many brands who were selling only online. Here in Canada, at least, there's many cities in lockdown where retailers weren't open. And so a lot of people did their holiday shopping online. And so it's sort of, how do you create that offline shopping experience for, a holiday season of all things, and bring that online and give the same kind of personalization and the same experience, whether it's live shopping events or real-time answers to your questions about a certain product, let's say. And so we're definitely seeing, again, just to recap, like a lot of people really leaning into retention tools, customer service tools. So particularly like email marketing, Gorgeous as a customer service platform, for instance. And then I just as of recently, through our recommendation program, that's kind of the program at Clearbanc that I manage, we're seeing a lot of people also interested in testing out new channels, being SMS marketing, podcast advertising. I think right now people are in a position where it's maybe a slower time for their business. So they're starting to spend some more time to research these channels, validate it, experiment with it to see if it is something that's an option, so that they're in a really good spot to see if that's something they want to, add in as part of their core marketing strategy, especially for Q3, Q4 when things pick up a little bit. And then obviously, given the Apple iOS update that's coming, our customers are really concerned about this, particularly, they are not a lot of them are working with an agency or maybe not in a position to do so right now. And so they're really worried. And I know, I think it was Josh or Matt, you probably have a lot of thoughts on this too, of, how are small merchants, or how should small merchants maybe be thinking about this as it pertains to, what percentage of their marketing budget should be going to acquisition channels versus retention ones. I'd be actually curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, Josh or Matt.
I can speak to the point of preparing for the iOS updates and kind of our overall stance on it is just in general that we know it's coming, it's huge. It's going to be, I think that the general consensus, it's going to be hugely detrimental to measurement overall. And one of the things that I think has led to the Facebook IG dominance to this point is they've just, their measurement and their attribution has been extremely airtight, particularly across channel. And when that kind of core value prop begins to fade as these restrictions come out, that kind of the magic from those channels is going to dissipate a little bit, especially if retailers and advertisers are not properly established on their side. And so, Jenna, you mentioned a little bit, but I'll also pump the future of the web section of our website, which contains all of the content that we're putting out across all the various partners that we're managing, all the various channels that we're managing across, as a really a supreme space to get all the news and updates that you possibly can about this stuff. And honestly, I'm checking it almost daily too, so that I can stay on top, because there's a lot happening. But somebody mentioned server to server in terms of conversion APIs, which is something that a lot of people are hearing about now. Highly recommend it. Again, a lot of the other alternate attribution solutions that are being mentioned here, these are only going to become more and more important as access to quality data kind of diminishes from an ad serving perspective.
Thanks, Josh. I'm going to drop the link to that section of Tinuiti website in the chat right now. Can we take a step back on this? And maybe, I know that I don't want to take the whole webinar up for this, but I think it's a super important topic, and folks are pretty worried about it. Matt in chat asks, how will the Apple iOS update affect marketing strategy? Do you think we can kind of just take a step back and do a quick, like, high level, what's going on here? Anybody want to take that?
Happy to jump in there. As far as what they're doing with iOS 14 and ITP, I mean, ITP stands for Intelligent Tracking Prevention. Essentially what Apple is doing is they're preventing cross-site cookies from loading. So the way Facebook works, and the way Facebook, as Josh alluded to, has been so dominant, is their ability to track a conversion is better than any other platform. And part of that's because you have Facebook or Instagram on every device. So tracking cross-device, tracking these paths to purchase has been Facebook's bread and butter. And with this update, it hasn't even come to full fruition yet, but there's a lot of just discussion, and Google's been talking a lot about this too. It's not just Apple, but what the fear is, then Facebook is not going to be able to track these conversions, and their whole platform is based on essentially finding the people that are most likely to convert. They convert, and then that goes and feeds their model. And if that model doesn't have that feedback loop, then people are worried that the tracking or I guess the ability for them to find new customers for you will decrease. So that's, as Josh alluded to, I think for us at Enquire, like what we're telling people is like implement a survey or look at other ways, like get your team a little familiar with running simple, and I'm sure Dan would talk about this, but running simple like linear regressions on top of spend and orders if you have enough volume, just to see like I spent here, is volume going up? There's just a lot of stuff that people can do to just kind of build their arsenal around attribution that isn't like going super deep into like multi-touch or any of the stuff that was super reliant on pixel data.
Thanks, Matt. And Matt in chat, let us know if that explained it a little bit better for you. I know it can get kind of crazy, but yeah, he said yes. Thank you. Cool. Thanks, Matt. All right. I think let's wrap this section up. Gabe, I wanted to hear from you. What advice do you have for merchants to really take advantage of the tail end of this quarter and prepping up for a strong Q2?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, again, kind of highlighting what we talked about in the first question, was just simplifying the shopping experience and flow. You know, whether it's utilizing like Klarna or things where you can afterpay, like at checkout, those have been super popular. It'll be interesting to see if those continue into 2021 in terms of, you know, the adoption rate there. So that allows people to split up. So depending on the price point, you know, personally, I struggle with like the idea of like splitting up payments on like an $80 pair of pants. To me, like I struggle with that just from a moral perspective, but I understand everyone's in their own different positions. And if that gets someone to convert on a pair of pants, you know, that's definitely an opportunity for people to do. And then I think focusing on the follow-up with the conversion, you know, obviously omni-channel, like we do a lot about retention marketing, right? So we partner with people like Justuno to get people at the top of the funnel. And then, you know, we try to, you know, automations behind that so that, you know, you can continue to remind people to come back to the site and either complete their purchase or abandon cart, abandon browse. So all of those kind of key automations in place. And then post-purchase follow-up is huge, because when we talk about like Margot and the Canadians holiday and like trying to drive that in-store experience, like people want that experience, they still crave it. And so there's a huge opportunity still to kind of connect with people after they make the purchase. So care tip notifications is one of my favorite, because it's sort of the soft sell. So like if you sell like high-end leather goods or shoes or that kind of thing, sending an email after, you know, 4 weeks of purchase and talking about, here's how you take care of it, here's how you clean your product. Oh, by the way, did you know we carry those cleaning products? And do you know here's a tutorial on how to take care of them? Like people love that kind of content because it, again, creates that experience. I think people are also love the stories. You know, everyone's watched like every single Netflix documentary at this point. So people are like kind of in that mindset. They want to know the story behind the brand kind of thing. And so it's a great opportunity to seize on that in terms of engaging with your customers. So, you know, whether it's a text-based email that's a note from the founder of like, thank you for your purchase. If you ever have any feedback, we'd love to hear from you, that kind of thing. Like people will love to engage with that kind of stuff and give those people the opportunity to do it. And I think it also talks into like Dan's idea of like, you know, how can you incentivize a sign up without a discount? Hey, do you want to have a meet and greet with our founder? If you have some sort of celebrity profiles, huge giveaways, sweepstakes, those types of things allow you to you know, eliminate the cut into margin, but still provide something that people are excited to sign up for.
Yeah, I've seen some really great emails from brands, but like one that sticks out in my mind was Stories of Patagonia. Like they send, you know, really, I think they even have journalists who have written for like the New York Times or something like this as working for their brand, and they send out just, you know, a brief story, and it's an engaging email, but it's not selling anything, which is selling.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Gabe, for that. I think email is always
Sure.
super interesting for me, as you know, as we talk about the demise of these other channels, or not demise, but you know, it's not going to be as easy. So I think in contrast, email and SMS is going to become even more important to really nurture and pay attention to. We have a couple of questions that have come in from chat that I'm going to note down to answer later. So just so you know, I see you, and we'll get to those shortly. Let's launch into our closing topic. I want to launch another poll. By the way, I didn't share the results. Dan, you might be interested in this from the first poll. It seems that it was a tie about forecasts between people using Excel and then people who are not using forecasts. Cool. Second poll I would like to launch before we get into this topic is, are you currently using a post-purchase survey? So Matt has talked a lot about how at Enquire, they're really seeing merchants leverage these to tie in to dial in their attribution. And I've heard about Matt's tool a lot, so I was super interested to learn more about it. But I'll go ahead and give a few more seconds for folks to vote. It looks like the high majority is saying no. We have 3 folks that have answered yes, and those better not be Justuno employees.
I'll just say I'm not surprised about the answer about the forecast, that the highest 2 were Excel and no. But I'll say if you're use a post-purchase survey, I'm just going to be blunt, like just do it. I'm just do it. It's super useful. It's going to help you with your attribution, especially at the top of the funnel. And Matt, he's done it really well. It's great. We see results where over 50% of people for some of the brands that we work with do that will fill it out. And it is such a valuable asset for you to help you understand, back to what Josh is saying, is like, Instagram, right? You don't know which influencers, or if you're doing that, it's really hard to sort of track some of that, and it's going to be even worse. We're telling you, it's going to be worse. So go do something. So Matt's on the right side, and so I'm pointing over to him. Go use something like that.
Oh, here
I
we go.
swear I didn't pay Dan for that either. Yeah, post for like kind of just to go on top of what Dan's saying, and with this closing question, or yeah, the post we're seeing like our customers use it. Like attribution is definitely a huge thing that we're invested in helping customers really uncover, or helping merchants uncover where their customers are coming from. But beyond attribution, like these post-purchase surveys, the way Enquire works, and you could definitely do this with other survey platforms if you exported the data, but we tie the response directly to the order and to the customer. So you're essentially instantly enriching your CRM or your just customer database with more data that's will help you make better decisions. And a great example of that is we had a customer who sells it's like car wash fluid, but for it was for dirt bikes, and all of their marketing was focused on people that ride dirt bikes, kind of more of like your motocross. And they used our survey just to ask like, what kind of dirt bike, or what are you washing with our car wash stuff? And they found that like 10% of their customers are using it for dirt bikes. Like everyone is using it for ATV, and it's a completely different customer. They wouldn't have found that using Facebook or anything. The only way to really do that is ask. So they updated all their Facebook ad copy, their landing pages on their site, and essentially just revamped everything they were doing, and their ROAS just shot through the roof. So it's just a good example of like, I think we always say like, how well do you know your customers? Like, does Facebook know your customers better than you do? And really the only way to do that is talk. And I guess the last thing to note, like too, everyone's focused on D2C, like marketing to your customers. And we're starting to use the phrase DFC, which is direct from consumer. And this could be through post-purchase surveys. It could be through your customer service platform like Gorgeous, Instagram comments. Like, where is the flow of information coming from the customer and going to the merchant? And those are the things, if you want to build a really good kind of marketing arsenal in 2021 with iOS and 14, these are the things that are only going to help you. So that's how I would start to kind of build out that area of your marketing internally.
Great. So Matt and Dan, your recommendation for preparations to ensure healthy sales for the rest of the year is to implement a post-purchase survey. Dan, I'll come back to you to get if you have another one. Gabe, I'd like to ask you what your recommendations are for preparing for healthy sales for the entire year.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing you can do is kind of think outside the box, which I think is kind of the recurring theme here, right? It's constantly experimentation, find the new thing and do it, right? And post-purchase surveys, we saw like here in the panel that 4 people said they do them and the rest don't. So that's something new, right? You're gonna be new and kind of set yourself apart. Kind of going back to my wife, like she is in e-commerce because of me, and I tell her everything I learned, but she really has no interest in what I do on a daily basis outside of the stories I tell her. But like when she gets a package and she pulls it out and it's like, hey Kendall, thanks for ordering, and it's handwritten, like she loves that stuff. She lives for it. And that's what we kind of have to think about. It's super easy for us to be kind of jaded by the environment and the ecosystem that we work in on an everyday basis. And we like nitpick like, oh, what's the unsubscribe form look like and that kind of thing. When someone clicks unsubscribe, they don't care what questions are there. They don't care what the unsubscribe form looks like. They don't care if your logo's on there or not. Like they're unsubscribing because they don't want to hear from you. But like we nitpick that stuff. Like how can we make sure that like every single person gets as much information as possible and we don't lose anybody outside of that funnel? So that being said, kind of making yourself unique, personalized note and packaging, having unique packaging. I think green packaging is huge. Like we get our filters every month auto subscribed because I forget to go to Lowe's, and like they sent me a paper that like, hey, we're no longer wrapping our filters in plastic. And like my wife's like, oh, you should send them a note. That's great because that's aligned with what we're doing. And so people are still kind of looking for those unique experiences, and they want the brands that stick out. And as TikTok grows and Instagram is still huge, I'm like an old millennial, I guess. I don't really know anymore. I never downloaded Snapchat, whatever I am. I'm like an old man in the 36-year-old body. But the idea being like, there's still mommy influencers. There's still people going to be bragging on Instagram. There's still going to be people talking about what they buy. And I like Matt's point, like direct from consumer, people are going to be talking to each other because the only experience we have right now is walking the streets in our neighborhood or buying stuff online. It's like we've all turned into dogs because every time the mail lady comes to the house, we're like looking out the window like, who's there? Because that's all the excitement that we get. So that's just kind of doing everything you possibly can to make yourself unique and stand out from the others out there is going to be exactly what sets you up for success.
That's cool. I hope I didn't insult you. I dropped an old man emoji in the chat for you, Gabe.
It was my birthday last year, and like I've come to terms that I'm like closer to 40 now than anything else, and it's just, yeah, it's happening.
Same here. Cool. Josh, why don't you talk to us about what you guys are recommending for your merchants to prep for the rest of the year?
Yeah, sure thing. First off, Gabe, like my office has a window out to the street, so I'm definitely, anytime mailman, any car drives by, I'm always looking at it. So sorry if you guys saw my head snap a few times today. I hear you on that one. But yeah, really, I want to just mention leveraging all the learnings from this past year, because it was a completely different e-commerce in particular environment, and we got so much data so fast this year and at just such a quicker clip than most likely in a lot of previous years. And so the ability to leverage that and use that as part of your new kind of table stakes go-to-market strategy versus just kind of thinking it was an anomaly is going to be huge to success. I know, again, also Gabe with you here on I'm not really into Snapchat, TikToks, but a lot of people that are buying products are, and these products and these platforms are definitely leaning into direct response, and we're seeing some pretty great results for a lot of the clients that we're running this for. So lean into these emerging platforms and channels that are coming out, and are the ones that are resonating with younger consumers and people that have a lot of purchasing power. And the other thing I'd mention too, and it's been talked about a few times here, but the businesses that are well positioned going into the IDFA, the deprecation of cookies, the businesses that have put in the legwork up front are going to be the ones that succeed in 2022 period. To bury your head in the sand and just kind of think, oh, it's not here yet, or it might not be that bad. It'll be a pretty rude awakening when these things hit. So everything that you can be doing now in terms of upfront investment and making sure that your attribution and your modeling and how you measure your ad spend is, all of these things are going to be extremely imperative to success moving forward.
Thank you, Josh. Margot, let's go ahead and pass it to you, and then I think I'll let Dan close us out.
Yeah, absolutely. For us, I think this is kind of even what Josh said, like, in addition to just diversifying your marketing strategy for the year, it's a time of the year where hopefully brands are taking the time to really look at their historical sales and marketing data to set them up for success. Even if you are continuing and seeing that growth month over month, I think as you're looking at your strategy for the year, or even for the quarter, let's say, you're going to need the capital and the cash flow to continue that scale. If you are thinking about possibly launching into new markets or maybe a new product assortment, those are all things that, by using Clearbanc, it provides you with the ability to do so. And so in addition to that and some of our free data products, we're helping our founders figure out like where is the best place to efficiently spend the capital and really help them and connect them with the right partners to figure out the most efficient way for them to scale and meet those growth goals. So I think, for us, it's just really analyzing the numbers and taking that time to do so. I know for a lot of founders, it's maybe not your preferred day to day. Maybe you have somebody else on the team who's really doing that or not. And so just taking the time to really analyze what that looks like.
Yeah, I know it may not be music to everyone's ears. I'm so not a numbers person, but I can share even here this year, or actually last year at Justuno, we really focused in on numbers, and it's helped provide so much clarity and so many, even rolling down to marketing. So I will echo those recommendations. Okay, Dan, take us home. What are your recommendations outside of post-purchase survey?
Yeah, thanks, Jenna. I think for me, the one thing that I really stressed in a lot of places is for people to really start thinking about retention. I think last year with everything, we got sucked so much into the whole world changed. E-commerce is growing fast. We were sort of thinking about how do we acquire customers, and now you have not only have, you know, it depends a little bit on their vertical, but a lot of verticals have been very successful and had some of the best months they've ever had in the history of their brands. And you've also acquired a whole bunch of customers that are not used to buying online. So, you know, think about, for us, our parents now being forced to buy stuff online that they never did before. And so you have to, so for me, I think one of the key things is really thinking about retention, and not just from a sending another email, but more about thinking about the intersection of who your customers are, how you break them into segments, and how you're sending that email. And so great example, I was just realized, you know, you realized yesterday and threw something up on LinkedIn. It's like, tomorrow is 12 weeks since Black Friday. So for all those people that purchased Black Friday, what are you doing about those people that haven't done anything since? Are you just going to sort of generically do something, just leave them there? Or are you going to try and do something special to re-engage them? Because for most brands, like going 30, 60, 90 days without anything is kind of a big deal. You know, maybe not if you're buying mattresses, but if you're buying beauty or skincare or something, you hopefully have got a second purchase. And so I think I would say for 2021, if you don't have somebody that owns retention in your business, go find them or go hire that person, because I think that's going to be a huge lever that people need to pull. Otherwise, you're going to struggle with all these customers you acquired last year. They're not going to come back.
That's actually one of the few notes that I wrote down from your Clubhouse chat last night, is that I think you mentioned, Dan, you said almost every team or organization has somebody's role who's in charge of acquisition, but very rarely is it somebody's whole dedicated focus for retention. So cool. Well, thank you, everyone. We are right at 1:52 my time, 53. So we have about 7 minutes left. I did have a few questions that came in from chat. Certainly, if you have any more questions, feel free to drop those in chat right now, but I'm going to go from the top down. So we had a question from Stephanie, pretty close to the beginning. She says, do you have any recommendations for navigating Facebook ads? That might be a little vague, but anybody want to take a shot at maybe just giving a recommendation around what to do, maybe about understanding Facebook ads? Or Stephanie, if you want to provide any clarity in the chat. Maybe wait for clarity. Okay. We can punt that one. Stephanie, if you'd like to maybe provide a little bit more context around your question. Let's see. There was also a statement that came in, and Josh, I thought this might be an interesting one for you. So someone in the chat named Lucero mentioned that they are not using TikTok because they heard it is only for teenagers. They have a vineyard. And I just responded in the chat that I know a bunch of old millennials, thank you, Gabe, for that term, that use TikTok every day. So do you have any insight around demographics?
Yeah, I would have to reference back to, I forget where I saw the research, but particularly as the pandemic hit and more people were at home and TikTok really gathered momentum from like a daily user perspective, the demographics began to skew, I don't want to say towards older individuals, but it really moved away from just being kind of a Gen Z and teenager type of platform. And so you're seeing it used not only now for just dance videos, but there are doctors and other people that are actually using it as a content platform and a content delivery platform for them, versus it just being purely entertainment at this point. So the short answer to that is the demographic since its inception has began to shift towards more millennial and even older. It still does skew most heavily towards the younger demographic, but there still is a good user base that has the kind of the buying power of people that are more established in their professional careers. So it's, yeah, don't just discount it as a teeny bopper platform.
Okay, Lucero, if you're still with us, hopefully that provided some advice for you. Okay, so Stephanie got back with some context around her Facebook question. She said, I'm really looking for any advice about services or resources about how to start using Facebook ads. I'm in a startup company of 3 people, and we are finding that most agencies cost upwards of $5K per month.
Yeah, I mean, I'm coming from the agency space. Agencies aren't always the cheapest route to go, but once you kind of hit a critical mass of outrunning your own internal expertise, it's obviously, I feel like that's a great route to go. But before that, I would definitely encourage you to read up as much as you can. It's not too tough to get kind of your own campaigns off the ground if you have a little bit of creative and your brand voices, you guys feel comfortable with that. And you know, there's tons and tons of blogs out there. The Tinuiti one is one also, but there's many blogs that can really help you get off the ground with whatever budget you feel comfortable with spending. Margot, I'm sure, can also help you out in terms of the funding side of things if media and ad spend is a struggle for you as well. But there's a lot of good resources to get you off the ground. And once you, again, hit kind of a critical mass of your internal expertise is you're a little bit past it, then you can kind of look into either working with an agency or investing in somebody that's more of a specialist in those channels.
Yeah, and I'll just throw in there, the one of the keys to getting started is don't be afraid to fail, right? Your goal is to test and to learn to see what works. So if you put out an ad that doesn't work well, that's okay. Because what it's going to make you do is figure out, you know, you have to go into it with the hypothesis about why you think this is the right ad. And if it doesn't work, then you go back and say, what are the things that I'm going to change that are controllable, that I can now test a variation? Is it your call to action? Is it your audience? Whatever it is, and then try it again. And you're just going to have to do that until you get to a point till you find a winner.
Yeah,
I would also say on top of that, just to check out services like Marketer Hire. They essentially find former people that were in-house maybe managing, or former agency people who are just on their own. And if your budget's small, you might only need someone for a couple hours a week just to make sure the structure's set up correctly and you're tagging everything correctly, just to get kind of the foundation. And someone like that might just be $70 to $100 an hour, and it might just be 2-3 hours a week just to lay that foundation if your spend's not super high. So that's usually what I recommend. And then once you get large enough, definitely the agency model makes sense. But just getting started, like just getting someone for an hour a week or an hour a month, just to like make sure your structure is set up, will save you a lot of headache in the future if like you weren't tagging something or you're just doing something completely backwards.
Great. Stephanie says, thank you. That was very helpful. So thanks everyone who chimed in there. It looks like we have time for maybe one more question. Let's see. Matt from chat, not Matt panelist. Matt asks, what formats work best for a post-purchase survey? So this probably goes to Matt, panelist.
Yeah, what was the question again?
What formats work best for a post-purchase survey? Are you seeing different formats, or is it just?
So we focus on one format. So we focus pretty solely on the order confirmation page. Part of that is because the user is just purchased a product and they're excited to see that it went through. So that's why Dan alluded to it, like our conversion rate across all of our customers, this is like, call it 100, 150,000 surveys a day, is about like 58%. So the opt-in is super high when it's there. When we talk to customers who maybe have done a survey before via email, like when we tell them that, it's always like, what? Like we're used to 10 to 12%. So as far as like format goes, think about areas and surfaces where customers are highly engaged. So what we'll be moving into eventually is obviously like email, but also SMS, just other areas where we know we can get someone to essentially participate and answer. So that's the format. I don't know if your question was about like the types of questions, like the how did you hear about us one is definitely our most popular. What we've seen talking about kind of text is the more simple a survey, the higher conversion rate you're going to have and the increased accuracy. Like you don't want your customer to have to infer anything. Like if you say YouTube ad unit or YouTube ad, we see like some customers don't even know like what a YouTube ad is. It might just be to them like a television commercial before a YouTube thing. Like, so there's all this stuff that you want to be kind of super, you don't want to be complex with your language. But at the end of the day, like it's up to you. Like you can ask a customer who bought a certain item, like, hey, why did you buy this dress today? So it really all depends on your brand and how you want to talk to your customers.
Great, thanks, Matt. And Matt in chat, let us know if they answered your question. So I think that's all we have time for. We are now 1 past the hour. I want to go ahead and drop in for those people who are still here. Our partners have got together and put together some free trial offers for you and some goodies. So I put it here in the chat, but you can basically all of the SaaS people offering some free trials for Josh and his growth media team. If you'd like to schedule a consultation or an evaluation, you can just shoot them an email at partners@tinuiti.com. Clearbanc, you guys are giving a reduced fee on your first Clearbanc Capital Advance. You can check out the landing page there. And then I didn't speak at all about Justuno today. We didn't want to present today. We wanted it to be a platform for our partners. But a really cool thing that we've been pushing here internally is Justuno Plus. I gave the link there. If you'd like to check it out, you can just visit that URL. So thank you all. It looks like we have about 45 people still on. So thank you all for spending some time with us today. I super appreciate it. And thank you to all our panelists and to our new panelists, our new partners. Thank you so much for kicking the tires with the Justuno audience. And I will send out the recording tomorrow. Everybody,
Thanks, Jenna. Thanks,
Awesome.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jenna.
Thank you, Jenna.
Thanks, everyone.
have a
Great
good
day.
day. Thanks, everyone. Bye.